If you weren't lucky enough to be at the Outdoor Resort Indio Thursday movie night, we've got a treat for you. Our own Norm Hansen, a former Navy carrier and test pilot, gave an intro to the movie Top Gun that you've got to see. Stay tuned.
Well, my name is Mary Ochoa. My husband Phil and I have a lot here at ORI that we love, and we met Norm and his wife Dee Dee in water aerobics, and knew them for about 9 months before we ever found out that he was not only a airline pilot but a fighter jet pilot as well.
And he's flown on all the aircraft carriers?
Yeah, he's landed on all, at the time, all of the aircraft carriers. He'd landed on every single one.
And at night?
And at night, which is really challenging. And then you've got the, the to and fro of the ship, to take into account too. And
right.
Yeah. And so then one night, I think it was after the New Year's Eve party, which ends at 9 o'clock. We went back to their lot. But, somehow the story came out that he actually flew fighter jets. And I was like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. I mean, because, even he's telling this story and I'm still not, the pennies aren't dropping. And I go, wait, you mean you actually flew these jets? Like real jets? And he's like, yeah. So then when Top Gun came out, Phil and I had already seen it in the theater, and then a couple of times. And then we watched it with him and Dee Dee in their motorhome. He's got a super duper sound system in there, and it was just like, I felt like I was in the jet, And he had just having someone who'd actually done it gave such a different perspective and layer to the movie, as opposed to just watching these random people on screen. You're like, oh, someone I know actually did that. I thought the Top Gun movie was great, and a lot of people really seemed to respond to it. There was a lot of military people, former military people that had come, and he did a nice recognition of people veterans who had served, which was really nice, and I think it just gave a little sense of community to some former veterans that maybe hadn't had that opportunity to have those kind of talks in a long time. So I thought that was phenomenal. Phil and I both come from military families, so we didn't serve ourselves, but so we have a deep appreciation for that life and that sacrifice that you make in being in the military, not only the person serving, but the families as well. So it was just a lovely evening with friends and a great movie, and a great soundtrack, and very exciting. That's my 5th time I've seen it, and I'm still like, I know what's going to happen, but I'm still on the edge of my seat. It's still exciting to me to watch it.
I want to thank you. Thank you for introducing him to the audience last night and talking about him now, and we appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure and my honor to be any part of that, and so happy to be great friends with Norm and Dee Dee, and to be part of ORI, and thank you as a fellow Iridian.
Is that what you call it?
That's what we're calling it today. Right. In showing this, because there were a lot of people that didn't get to go and wanted to see it, so to have it on your YouTube channel is very exciting. So thank you.
Okay, well, stay tuned. The speech that Norm gave is about to come up. Stay tuned.
So, born and raised in Cody, Wyoming, he was selected for all 4 service academies out of high school: West Point, Annapolis, the Air Force Academy, and the Coast Guard Academy. He graduated in 1978 and selected aviation. He was selected for a jet carrier-based aircraft during flight training after graduating from Annapolis. After the first tour, he was selected for an operational test pilot. During his naval career, he flew off every carrier the U.S. Navy had. Following active duty, he retired as a commander and was hired by Delta Airlines and was with them for 31 years, retiring in 2021. Captain Norm Hansen might have flown you around if you fly Delta. He retired in 2021 as a 767 captain. He's flown more than 25,000 hours. And one of the most exciting things, so this is my 5th time watching Top Gun. The first 3 was in the theater, and then the 4th time we watched it with Norm. And I'd be like, well, what about this? What about that? And like, so have you like landed on an aircraft here? You know, I don't know. And he goes like, yeah. I go, like, 5 times, 50 times. He's like, 500. I'm like, 500. So it's amazing his knowledge, and we're so excited that you are here with us tonight, Norm. Thank you very much from Phase 2 in the green and white Newell. There's Norm Hansen.
Hey, thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank Mary, Phil, and my wife. Obviously, she's done a wonderful job setting this up. But we had one administrative thing to take care of ahead of time. We have an anniversary today, and it's my #1 fan, Patsy Jones, and her husband, Ken. And so it's their 60th wedding anniversary, and we have cake and ice cream for you in the back for any time you want. If you get bored of me or bored in the movie, go eat some cake. Okay. Yes.
These 2 were so wonderful to my husband.
Okay, before we get started, I just want to recognize the veterans. If all the veterans will raise your hand or stand up, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. You are an instrument of national policy. All right. So I'm going to go into the Top Gun connection and how this all happened. When I graduated the Naval Academy, I couldn't get to flight school right away, so they sent me to Miramar to an F-14 squadron. What's that, louder? Okay, F-14 to Miramar in an F-14 squadron. I had a partner during that time. His name was Alex Hanarkis. His call sign was Yogi. My call sign was Stormin, Norman, the eye of the hurricane. But anyway, just Stormin was my call sign. Well, we went to Miramar, and I'll describe what we kind of went through. We had to go through this water training and G training, and we flew a lot of combat in the back of A4s, but we hadn't ridden in the F-14 yet. So they took us up to McCord Air Force Base, and Ensign Hansen, 22 years old, wondering how this thing worked. So we get all geared up, and we get ready to take off, and I'll just describe what it felt like first time. The guy goes, hey, you want to put it in afterburner? Okay, put it in afterburner, big kick. Then I just looked at the speed gauge, and it was 100, 200, 300, 350. We still haven't even left the ground hardly, and then all of a sudden, you just go straight up. We went to 22,000 feet, leveled out, and we had another F-14 out there, so we decided, hey, let's go head-to-head on it. We accelerated to Mach 1.3, which Mach, just for everybody's clarification, Mach 1 is 10 miles a minute. Mach 1.3 is 13 miles a minute. So the pilot told me, I knew how to run a radar. He said, hey, tell me when they're 26 miles away. 26 miles away, we hit our clock. 1 minute later, boom, we were like this at a closure rate of Mach 2.6 or 26 miles a minute. And I was going, I guess I don't want to be an airline pilot. I want to be an F-14 pilot. So that got me hooked right off the bat. Yogi was just excited as I was, and we went through the whole thing together, but he married the F-14 that day. And come to find out, he would go to his first squadron, and when he was there, California Magazine decided to do an article. When they did that article, it was called Top Guns, they showed this picture. And the director, Tony Scott, saw the picture and he said, you know what that is? Star Wars on Earth. We're going to make it as a movie. So anyway, a couple years later, they had the movie made, and that was Top Gun. But it was about Yogi, my partner that I did. And what's interesting is I met Yogi 5 years ago, and he's still as excited as the first day he flew in the F-14. And he flew it his whole career, all 30 years, and was one of the highest hour F-14 guys. Anyway, if you ever want a book with some good aviation pictures, this is it. It's a cutting edge. It's not cheap. It's around 200, 230 bucks. Anyway, that's my Top Gun connection. And the movie, when they did the casting, they took 6 Navy guys, of which 3 of them were my really good friends. One of them wrote the script, so of all the pilot talk. I feel the need for speed. I'm not sure who came up with that, but my whole time as an airline guy, when I'd get ready to take off as a captain, I'd look over and say, I feel the need for speed. When? and there we go, rolling down the runway and do the thing. But it wasn't like the F-14 where it accelerated that fast. So after flight school, I flew S-3 Vikings, which was an anti-submarine airplane, and then they were going to make it an offensive airplane where we could attack ground targets. And so I went to Pax River to do the test flying to get this airplane to pull more G's and everything else. So we flew out of the envelope that it was normally designed to fly in. We learned to fly it in a way it can do combat. In this movie, you'll see guys going up and then you'll see them roll and pull. Well, the whole deal with us and our Navy pilot things is we're going to try and stay 50 feet from the ground or lower. Maybe, if it's real combat, maybe 25. But when we go up over a hill, we don't want to go up and then push over. We can stay a lot closer to the ground if we start the roll early and pull down as we're doing that. Well, all that involves G's. And if, I have a lot of sayings about G's, but Patrick knows them, that's all. Anyway, just G's in general is what you feel right now is 1 gravity. 2 gravities, you double your body weight. As you get to 3 gravities, you wear a G suit, and it wraps around your legs and up around your stomach. You kind of know when you're at 3 G's because it's starting to press on you. You get to 4 G's, it's really pressing on you. Now you're 4 times your body weight. You get to 5 G's, and now your 200-pound body weighs 1,000, and you're constraining to fight all that. Well, we go up to about 9 G's. So you do that, you're 1,800 pounds, your 10-pound head now weighs 90 pounds, you're going like, oh man. But, so this whole time you're looking over and fighting, but you're sweating and the whole thing. That's dogfighting in general. One of the things that happens as you pull these G's is your lungs start to fill up with water. So as that happens over a sustained period of time, we breathe 100% oxygen. And by the time we're in the middle of a fight, we're because our lungs are full of water. And when we land, it takes probably about 15, 20 minutes for that to clear out, and then we have a full breath again. But that 100% oxygen is necessary when you pull all these G's. The G suits, I call them speed pants. So, hey, get your speed pants on, we're going to go. So, but anyway, the G suit was important in that whole thing. And that's kind of my connection to Top Gun 1. And so a lot of my friends, and if we have enough interest, I can actually go through every scene in Top Gun 1 and tell you how it was done and why it was done that way. Well, so Tony Scott sees this picture, and he says, I'm going to make Star Wars on Earth. He said, who took that picture? Well, it was this guy, Heater Heatley. And this is who did this book. He's a photojournalist that was a Navy Top Gun pilot. And he was a wild man. He was probably the best Top Gun pilot at the time. The first time I met him, he had red hair, curly, sticking out the side of his non-regulation hair. He was very, very cocky. We all wore green flight suits. Not Heater, he wore an orange flight suit. He would start with the brief with, at what moment do you want me to kill you? And, he was serious and probably could at about any time. Heater, then, the other thing I saw about him, we had a Navy formation set up, and I remember Heater getting his enduro and doing a wheelie all the way across the formation, and I was going, who is that guy? Well, Tony Scott, when he met this photographer, He said, that's the Tom Cruise I want, is that Heater guy. So the motorcycle scenes, all that stuff come from Heater. Heater's still alive right now. He lives in Annapolis. I think he's got cancer of some sort. And the other sad part, my buddy Yogi died of cancer also. So anyway, a lot of radiation in our world. So I'm gonna move forward because I want to talk about some different subjects besides that original Top Gun. I'm gonna take you through how do we do it in the Navy? How do we plan what the pilots are gonna do when they're on that carrier? Well, we have a period of workups about 4 months before we ever leave the States. And the Pentagon will send us 4 to 5 scenarios that we will plan, send it back to the Pentagon. They'll look at it and they'll say, okay, we like it. In my case, we had Nicaragua, North Korea, Iran, and we had one other one. It must have been Iraq. So because all those countries were trouble at the time. So we pre-planned strikes before we ever even leave the States. And then on the cruise, if you have to go against one of them, the Pentagon will say, hey, activate that plan you did, or we want these modifications. Normally it's targets. So that's how we set up before we go on cruise. Once we're on cruise, I'll just take you through what a pilot does. About 2 hours before we take off, we go to an intelligence briefing that tells us everything we're going to do. The route, where tankers are, what our targets are, what our threats are, and all that. We actually will study it for a couple hours before they even do the brief, so it's kind of a review for us. And the last thing we do, if it's real combat, we'll get the CIA to move a satellite into the target we want to hit, and we'll take a picture right before we take off so we can see exactly what's on the ground. And if we're trying to hit airplanes or whatever it is, it's all, we have the current intel. So in the beginning of this movie, it's on the Abraham Lincoln, which one of the things when I decided to be an airline pilot, the Navy said, you know what? We're not going to let you fly anymore because you had all this good flying, so we're sending you to this ship, the Abraham Lincoln. It was under construction, and I was in charge of the flight deck. So the very beginning of this, the guy touching the ground and all that, that's the shooter, and that's the job I had there. And I basically owned the flight deck at the Abraham Lincoln for the year and a half I was there. But I'll take you through quickly. I almost got to sit to do it because I kind of get animated in this. So you get in your jet, you're all got your speed pants on, you're all clipped in here and clipped in there. You get all your checklists done, everybody's happy, the computer's loaded with the targets, where you got to be, and all that sort of thing. Well, then we get in there and we're coming up to the catapult. When we get there, they guide us into the catapult. Once we're there, we put a launch bar down. Once that's down, they'll do this. When they do that, that means go to power. If you've got an afterburner airplane, they'll do this, which means afterburner. In our case, it was this, and then the guy would, when he did this, I would run the power up, be cycling my controls. Put my head back in the headrest, and then I would salute. As soon as I saluted, bam, 0 to 150 2 seconds later. And then you're just released and you're floating. Back and forth, accelerating. And as you're accelerating to about 3 or 350, 100, 300, or 350. And then we intercept, ready to go, we join up with our partners. And we've just started. We got a whole bunch more stuff to do. Now we got to go up, fly the route to the target, find the tanker, and then plug in, get our gas. Once we're done with that, then we rejoin up, and now we get ready for the target. Normally, the way the Navy does things, we hit a target with 3 things at a time. Usually we'll send TLAMs or Tomahawk missiles first, and what they do is they light up all the radars. Once the radars are lit up, then we take our EW people and what are called HARM missiles that take out radars, and they take out all the radars before the airplanes ever get there. Now, once the radars are out and they've certified what our threat is, then we'll come in as fast as we can go, low, and then depending on the type of bombing it is, could be laser, could be radar, or nowadays everything is GPS. When I was flying in the 80s, we typically would take 2 or 3 sorties to take out a target. In current warfare, we have bombs that are GPS controlled, and those bombs, up to 2,000 pounders, which is why we use B2s or B1s to take them over there in this last deal with the Houthis. But those target that it'll land within 5 feet of where you programmed it. So we want to make sure all that GPS and everything's in there. Well, in this movie, you'll see this GPS they're saying it's jammed. So guess what? We can't use that magic weapon that goes in there. So, but we have a backup. We can use lasers. So they have you'll see one airplane, it's an F-18E, and that's a single seat, one pilot in there. Then you'll see an F-18F. In that there's two. There's a weapon systems operator behind the pilot, and he controls all the navigation, the laser, and that whole thing. His job is to hold on to that target with the laser so that the bomb will guide to the target. And that's also very accurate. I know one time the Iranians shot a missile at one of our airplanes, and we just said, code green. They said, yeah, you're clear. Turned around, put the laser in the captain's stateroom, and just drove a bomb right in there and blew the ship in half. It was amazing. So, you know, the Iranians had a fight for about 23 seconds until the captain's stateroom was underwater. And that was the end of that deal. Meanwhile, on the ship, I was a strike planner, so I did a lot of the strike planning. And then when I was a test pilot, I was a futuristic guy, worked in the vault, and did all that. Where did that lead? I just remember the guys going, when that B-2 flies, the wall's coming down. I said, when? They said, probably about 9 months afterwards. No kidding, the B-2 flew, 9 months later, the wall came down. It was because it was against Soviet doctrine, which required a retaliatory strike. And with the B-2, the Soviets could no longer, they were going to get hit the second time. So anyway, that's how that went. So you go to the target, you drop your bomb. Well, you're still not done. Okay, climb back up and join up with everybody, make sure everybody's there, make sure everybody got rid of all their bombs, and then we head for the tanker again. Once we go to the tanker, we're headed back to the ship, most likely at night. So the terrifying part of the day hasn't even happened yet because you haven't done the night landing. So you come back, you're about 5 hours into this thing, and you come back and you do your night landing, and then which isn't easy, and I'll just tell you real quickly what they do. They set you up about 3/4 mile, and I would say, typically as a pilot, I'd go, Stormin 5.4 ball, and they go, Roger ball, a little power, or a little power on or off. So they're monitoring, 5 guys are monitoring every aspect of your approach, and if you notice, an aircraft carrier's deck is angled. So it's kind of a little, you're chasing this lineup all the way down. It's not like lining up a runway in Delta. This is completely a lot more work. Once we land, we catch a wire. We have a tail hook. So you see that little thing on those wings. Those are for pilots who've landed on carriers and used the tail hook. Well, the tail hook, now you're going to go to 150 to 0 in 200 feet. Whammo. Well, just to tell you a little side story, the first time I ever did it, I was in an A4 and landed, and I didn't lock my harness that holds me. And when I did that, my head got wedged between my leg and that, and I'm down there, and they're yelling at me, get that power off, because what you always do when you land is you add full power just in case you miss the wire. You're always basically planning for that. But now my head's, you know, kind of up my butt down there. And there I go. So I'm hanging on, and then, you know, I finally get out of there. And you're thinking, oh, it's over now. Oh, no. You got a taxi around this little flight deck, and they're going to take you up around the bow, and sometimes your body is hanging over the bow, and you're just looking at that black water out there just thinking, oh, my God. And so then we come around and shut down, go down. Well, we're still not done. We got to go to the intel people, tell them how our bombs went, tell them everything that happened on our flight. And then after that, we go, and the guys who controlled our landing, 5 of them, will give you a 15-minute debrief on the 30 seconds they saw you fly. And that happens virtually every landing for every pilot. Even if you're the admiral, you're going to get that 15-minute debrief from the landing signal officers. So that was always probably the most stressful part of the whole flight, was listening to those guys, you know, jump on you when you just think, oh, I dropped the bombs, I killed the target, I did all this. They go, no, you were a little high in the middle. You should have been on glide slope. So anyway, that's my story of what it was like on a normal day. Let me see what else. Is there anything I forgot there? Okay.
Thank you,
You like that part? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so what happened when the wall came down in 1990? Well, we had 15 carriers at the time. Today we have 11 carriers. Of those 11 carriers today, 9 of them are at sea on workups. And I think 4 or 5 of them are in theater. Right now, the Eisenhower's in the middle of the Red Sea. We've had shot down 100 drones and 21 missiles over the last, 8 or 9 weeks. They're hitting targets every day in Yemen. We're hitting them as hard as we can, but the problem is it's a supply deal coming from Iran, but that's a whole nother issue. But you don't want it to lead to us in a full ground war with Iran, so what they're trying to do right now is buffer that off. The Houthis are hitting us basically because we're supporting the Israelis. So anyway, so as the wall came down, we didn't have the need for carriers. We didn't have the need for all these special airplanes. So in Top Gun 1, you would see all kinds of airplanes on the flight deck, but not in Maverick. In Maverick, now we're multi-role desert fighters. So we have F-18s, E and Fs, and the new airplane is the F-35, which is pretty bad, pretty bad airplane. It'll kick your butt in lots of ways. But normally, with an F-35, you die before you ever know it's there. So, and that's kind of how they do everything passively and then just kill you. So we haven't put those in theater yet because we really would hate to see one get shot down and that technology be compromised. During the Bosnia War, we had a F-117 stealth fighter shot down, and they were worried to death that they were going to get all the skin off it and all this stuff that made it stealth. And, it's fine. Where the Soviets don't have the advantage on us is in avionics, same with the Chinese. We have incredible avionics in these airplanes nowadays. I flew the F-35 simulator this fall, and in flying it, unlike most airplanes, you got a trim knob and all these buttons. They also have a joystick on each hand. So their whole screen, instead of being all these instruments, is one flat screen. And that flat screen is AI in it. You wear a $400,000 helmet in the F-35. This helmet takes all the sensors from around the airplane. There's about 8 sensors that are visual, and then there's a whole bunch of electronic sensors. All that is fused, they call it technology fusion, and is in the helmet. And so you don't have to look at any of this here. It's all here. No matter where you look, it's there. And not only that, if the airplane goes underneath you, you can see through the floor, you can see through the wing, you can see through everything. It's just incredibly technology. And so the F-35 is in work now. Where is it going with the F-35? It's going to go to be a drone controller. Right now we've ordered thousands of drones, and they're going to send an F-35, and there's going to be attack drones and fighter drones and fueling drones. The fueling drones, I think, is just going to fly, or it's already flown. They're actually making them in production now. So the tanker that we have is actually going to be a drone. And it's going to go up there and be waiting for us in exactly the space we're thinking it's going to be. Unlike some of your fellow pilots, they're not exactly where they're supposed to be. Let's see. So let's see. So that ended up in a lot of bases closed. One of the bases closed for the Navy was Miramar. So they were closing El Toro, the Marine base. They moved all the Marines to Miramar, and they sent the Navy out to Fallon, Nevada. Not a lot of happy campers about their new location to buy a house. But there they were. But the beauty of Fallon, Nevada is now when you get to the F-18, it's a multi-role airplane. Before we had F-14, that was an interceptor. We had A-6s, which was a bomber. We had A-7, which was a visual bomber. We had, S-3s. We had all these airplanes all consolidated into the F-18. So the F-18, to make it from a fighter to a bomber, you push one button. Guess what? It flies completely different. Now it's squirrely, and it does all these crazy things when you're in the fighter mode. You want to get it nice and steady, hit the bomber button, boom, you're like an airliner, because it wants that bomb to drop without a lot of junk on it. So, because if you even move the stick at all as you're, move the bomb, if it's a gravity bomb and not a laser bomb or a GPS bomb, it'll not land where you thought it was going to land. So, right now we drop bombs. You can have a mosque on one side and a school on the other, but these things are so dang accurate that they'll put it right in the building with the bad guys. And I don't know if you saw recently, we took out a bad guy with one of our drone Reapers. And they have a new missile that is kind of I would say, swords in it. But so it doesn't hurt anybody but who it's trying to go. So he's in his car in the middle of an intersection. They send this missile in there with all these swords, you know. Anyway, it still blows them up and kills them. So that's one way we get rid of bad guys. It kind of got to what it's really done is to minimize the collateral damage. Our biggest responsibility in the Navy sometimes isn't killing the target, it's avoiding the collateral damage. Don't kill anybody that doesn't deserve to be killed, and we get held to that. All right. So the other thing that changed in 1994, we had started allowing women to come into combat aviation. They didn't fly combat till 2003, and the ones that are there now are badass. I'm telling you, these girls will kick your butt. Don't think I'm a guy and going to beat this girl and I'm going to pull more G's than her. Oh no, she'll put you down. So the best demo right now is for the F-35 is an Air Force captain. Her call sign is Beowulf. And if you ever go to YouTube, look up Beowulf and look at her air show, and you're going like, holy smokes, this girl's good. And so I went to Tailhook Convention this year with all the active duty guys, and I was just surprised as how many women there were. And these girls look tough, man. I tell you what, I'd be scared to go against some of them. Right now, Top Gun is in Fallon, Nevada, and Top Gun has 23 instructors, which I think 5 of them are female. And every Top Gun instructor is the top of the top. That's how you get there to be an instructor. Let's see, what else? All right, let's see, we did that. So you hear this stuff about hypersonic missiles. Well, the F-14, we had hypersonic missiles in the 60s, believe it or not, and the F-14 shot them. And it was called the Phoenix missile. So the Phoenix missile off an F-14 goes Mach 3, 30 miles a minute, plus the speed of the airplane, which can go Mach 2.3. So now you have a missile coming at you at Mach 5.3 or 53 miles a minute. We typically had that missile because in the old days when we were going to go against the Soviets, we planned on taking on at least 5 or 6 targets each. So the idea was we're going to send this 5.3 Mach missile out there at 60 miles, and some of it was, somebody said, I think half the Russians would turn around and run from then. But the idea was to take 2 or 3 of them out, so we only got, 2 or 3 of them to take on by yourself. So, but our missile technology is improved even more. And the AMRAAMs that we use right now, which is a medium-range air-to-air missile, and the Sparrows and with Sidewinders, and we've been using those against the drones over there. So right now the Eisenhower's going up and down the Red Sea, and those guys are overhead the whole time, and every time there's a drone launched, boom. So 5 days ago they launched 21 targets at us at one time. We had 4 Arleigh Burke class destroyers out there. They have SM-2 missiles that took out all the ballistic missiles. A ballistic missile from Yemen to the Red Sea, the ship has a reaction time of 9 to 15 seconds. So they're just right there on the button watching for that first missile to go airborne. Boom, gone. Problem is, we're shooting down $10,000 drones with $3 million missiles, and that ain't going to last long. So then we use the fighters up above, and they can intercept some of that, but particularly the drones are good at. The ballistic missiles we're better off with the ships to use. But so every day they're running strikes over there. What I talked about, going to all that junk, that's happening every day with these guys, and that's what they're doing. Let's see what else. All right, so that project right now in Yemen is called Project Guardian, and it's a coalition of forces. The Brits are in it, the French are in it, and it's kind of funny, the Chinese go through the Red Sea and they just broadcast we're Chinese, and then the Union won't shoot them. So, but actually the Chinese are moving their ships in there too. We'd like to see them shoot some things just to see how good they are, but in general, our avionics are just so far ahead of everybody's. The deal with the F-35 is when they originally designed it, they designed it really to come out about 15 years ago, and they thought they had 1 million lines of code to write for the computer in there. It turned out to be 1 billion lines of code. And they said, you know, it's going to take 5 years to write 1 billion lines of code to put in this airplane because you want to control drones with it and you want to do all this stuff. Well, it's done now. So, and we're just doing a big upgrade to it now. The biggest issue with the F-35 is air conditioning because they got so many computers running. But pretty fancy airplane. All right. Let's see. I guess we've attacked 30 different places in Yemen with 150 different kinds of munitions. Let's see. Saturday we took out all the Houthi radars. Let's see, Monday we did an electronic attack on the Iranian ship that was targeting the ships in the thing. I think we wiped its systems out forever. But we have a way to send enough energy back that they will not work anymore. Kind of like a electrical overload. And I think, let's see, Tuesday they took out 4 ballistic missiles that were ready to launch on the target. All right, the movie. That's about it of my history, and I'm going to be around for any questions you have about any of that after. But the movie's going to open with the Abraham Lincoln, my ship, and I'm proud of that ship. And you know, this job that they penalized me at, to be on there and have 200 enlisted guys under my belt and run that flight deck, the most satisfying job I ever had. It was because you get to turn young boys into men on that flight deck. And I'll tell you just one real quick story. I had a kid show up in my office, and I'm a lieutenant commander at the time, and he's really never seen a lieutenant commander before. So he comes in, and he's crying. He's going, I'm gonna die on that flight deck. And I go, no, you're not. He says, I'm gonna die on the flight deck. I said, okay, tonight you're going with me. So I go up to the top of the flight deck. And so I said, you know, the most dangerous job in this ship is when they run that airplane up to power, there's a guy that's down there checking everything to make sure it's all hooked up. If it's an F-14 and he's an afterburner, you weigh about 1.5 pounds, and you better be holding on to the little pad eyes in the deck or you're going to get sucked right into that engine. So this kid's scared to death, but you know, I'm a lieutenant commander. He's never seen one of me before. So I take him up there and I said, you're going to go under that airplane with me. He said, no, I'm not. I said, yes, you are. I said, only 3 people in this entire 5,000-man carrier have ever done that. So I grabbed him, I took him under there, and so we're holding on to the little pad eyes, and I'm telling the guy, put him in burner, put him in afterburner. We put him in afterburner. He, whoa, we're feeling up really light now. And so I grab him, and I take him out of there, and I took him down, and he was, you know, scared to death. And then they launched the airplane over our head, and it was really cool. But so I took him down below, and I said, you all right? And he goes, I'm not sure. And so I said, I'll give this an hour or two and see where he's at. Well, I went down and he was eating the late dinner, which is at 11 o'clock at night. This kid is strutting across the deck. He is a new sailor, and he was my best guy ever since. And I told him, you are one of 4 people who's ever been under there. And so that's, you know, that was one of just several stories that you have with these young boys, turning them into men and letting them understand risk, calculated risk, and how to handle it. So anyway, without any, yes, sir?
Is Lincoln in San Diego now?
No, it's been everywhere.
I think it came in 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, if you go look in the bell, I think my son's name is engraved in the bell because he was baptized on there. It's kind of one of the things that happened. So, but you know, every space, and I look at everything because we were building it in Newport News. And then after we build it, we have to get everything certified. And I remember it wasn't painted yet. You know how big an aircraft carrier is, huge. And we asked Newport News, how are you going to paint this thing? We're going to commission this thing in 2 weeks. He says, well, we got 6,000 painters with breathers. And so, man, we came back Monday morning, the whole ship was painted inside and out. We're like, whoa, that was something else. The one other thing about the Lincoln, and this is all our nuclear carriers have 2 reactors on them. The Enterprise had 8, but it's out of business. But they have 2 reactors on them. One of those reactors at 50% power is able to push that ship through the water at 35 knots, which is faster than 35 miles an hour. And we can fire a catapult continuously. We can shower 5,000 people and food from them from the steam that those reactors are creating. And that we only run them at 50% just for a demonstration when they're first built. Typically, it's an exponential decay on nuclear power, so you don't want to run them up to too high a power. They'll last, if you keep them down low power, they'll last you 50 years. The second, the president said, run over to whatever, okay, there goes 5 years of life in your reactor because you're speeding it across the ocean. So these aircraft carriers, depends on how many times they get sprinted across the seas, determines their lifespan before they need new reactor core. But I think one ship is in for that. They'll usually do one reactor core change, maybe two, in the life of a carrier. So the interesting part is the Lincoln's now one of the oldest carriers. It makes me like, oh man, it just seemed like yesterday. But that's the way it is. Anyway, with that, one thing else I just want to throw in. Tom Cruise drove this movie. They said, hey, we want to do Maverick 2 or Top Gun 2, and he said, yeah, show me a script worth doing, and I'll do it. Well, it took him a couple years. They got it together. So in 2010, Tom Cruise said, hey, I'll make a Top Gun 2. Unfortunately, Tony Scott, who is the original director in Top Gun, in 2012 committed suicide. So the movie was kind of left without the director, and so they went and found a new director, and it worked out well. And then Tom Cruise said, you know what? I want my actors in the backs of these airplanes. A lot of times they look like in the front seat, but they're really in the back seat. But he wanted them pulling G's and all of that kind of junk. And so they're feeling it real time. They're wearing the speed slacks and, feeling it 6, 7 G's. And for actors, it was crazy. But also the idea that a woman was with you is not unusual. That's the way it is nowadays. And you know what? They're just as good as us. It's like guys and girls are different in the airplane. Now they're both competent. They can both do their mission and they do it well. So that's all I got to say. Without any further ado, Maverick. All right.
Okay, I think we'll call that a wrap. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.